The concrete walls of my cell had never felt smaller than they did on May 15, 2024. While other fathers across the country were adjusting their ties and checking their cameras, I was staring at a calendar I had marked with red ink months ago. Today was my son Jake's high school graduation. I pressed my face against the small window, watching the sun rise over the prison yard. Somewhere, 40 miles away, Jake was probably getting ready, straightening his cap and gown, maybe wondering if his old man would somehow find a way to be there. But we both knew the truth. I had 8 more months on my sentence, and no amount of good behavior was going to get me out in time for this moment. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was here because I had tried to give Jake everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, the best life money could buy. And in my desperation to provide for him after his mother died, I had made choices that landed me behind bars for embezzlement. But Jake didn't know the whole story. Nobody did. What he also didn't know was that I had spent the last 3 weeks writing something for him, something that would be delivered to him this morning just before the ceremony. A speech that contained more than just fatherly advice and congratulations. A speech that would reveal a truth that had been buried for 15 years. A truth that would change everything. 3 weeks earlier, I had received an unexpected visitor. Jake sat across from me in the prison visiting room, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. At 18, he looked so much like his mother it took my breath away. "Dad, I need to ask you something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "and I need you to tell me the truth." My heart clenched. "What is it, son?" "The valedictorian speech, they want me to give it." He paused, studying my face. "But I can't do it without you there. I can't stand up in front of everyone knowing that my father is here." I reached across the table, but the guard's warning look stopped me from touching his hand. "Jake, you've earned this. You're the smartest kid in your class. You deserve—" "I don't care about deserving it." His voice cracked. "I care about the fact that everyone will be looking at me, thinking about what you did, thinking about how the valedictorian's father is a criminal." The word hit me like a physical blow, even though I had heard it countless times over the past 2 years. But hearing it from Jake's lips was different. It was devastating. "What if I wrote something for you?" I said suddenly. "What if I wrote a speech that you could read? That way, in a sense, I'd be there with you." He looked skeptical. "Dad, I don't think—" "Just think about it," I interrupted. "I know I can't be there physically, but maybe there's another way." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I had never told Jake the real reason I was here. I had let him believe the simplified version the newspapers had printed. Desperate father steals money to pay for son's education. But the truth was far more complicated and far more dangerous. If I was going to write this speech, if I was going to give Jake something meaningful, maybe it was time he knew everything. I started writing the next day, but not the speech Jake was expecting. Instead, I found myself writing about a night 15 years ago that I had never spoken about to anyone. The night his mother died. The official story was simple. Car accident on a rainy highway. Sarah had been driving home from her job at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. She lost control on a curve, hit a tree, died instantly. Case closed. But I knew better. Sarah had called me that night 20 minutes before the accident. She was terrified, speaking in hushed tones, telling me she had discovered something at work, something about one of the senior partners and a client who was involved in money laundering. She had copies of documents, she said, evidence that could bring down some very powerful people. "I'm scared, Michael," she had whispered into the phone. "I think they know that I know." Those were the last words she ever spoke to me. The police investigation was perfunctory. Accident, they said. Happens all the time on that stretch of highway. But I knew Sarah was the most careful driver I had ever met. She wouldn't have lost control unless something had forced her off the road. I spent years trying to prove what I suspected, hiring private investigators, following paper trails, making enemies of people who preferred their secrets buried. And when I finally got close to the truth, when I finally had enough evidence to expose what really happened to Sarah, they destroyed me. The embezzlement charges were real, but they were also a setup. I had been manipulated into a position where I had no choice but to steal. And when I did, they were ready with evidence, witnesses, and a prosecutor who was more than happy to make an example of me. As I wrote Jake's speech, I realized this might be my only chance to tell the truth, not just to Jake, but to everyone, because the people who killed Sarah were going to be in that auditorium. They always attended the graduations at Jake's prestigious private school. They would be expecting a proud father's words of encouragement. They would get something very different. The weight of 15 years of silence pressed down on me as I continued writing. Every word felt like a confession, every sentence a step closer to a precipice I wasn't sure I was ready to jump from. What right did I have to burden Jake with this truth? He was 18, about to start college, about to begin his real life. Did he need to know that his mother had been murdered? That his father was in prison not just for embezzlement, but for getting too close to exposing a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the legal and business community in our city? But then I thought about the alternative. Jake would graduate, go to college, maybe even follow in his mother's footsteps and become a lawyer. And someday, he might stumble across the same truth Sarah had discovered. He might ask the same questions, follow the same leads, and end up in the same danger. At least if he knew now, he could protect himself. I wrote about the night Sarah died, about the documents she had hidden, about the years I spent trying to find them. I wrote about the threats, the intimidation, the way my business contacts suddenly dried up, the way evidence against me seemed to materialize out of thin air. And I wrote about the choice I had made: take the fall for embezzlement and keep Jake safe, or fight the charges and risk both our lives. But most importantly, I wrote about where Sarah had hidden the evidence. Information I had never shared with anyone, not even my lawyer. Information that could still bring down the people responsible for her death. As I sealed the speech in an envelope, I realized I was essentially handing Jake a loaded gun. The question was, would he have the courage to use it? The guard came to collect the envelope the next morning. Special delivery, I had arranged through my lawyer, to be given to my son 1 hour before his graduation ceremony. I watched it disappear down the corridor, carrying with it 15 years of secrets and the power to either free us both or destroy us completely. Graduation day arrived with a clarity that felt almost supernatural. I sat in my cell, watching the clock tick toward 2 p.m. when the ceremony would begin. At 1 p.m., Jake would receive my envelope. By 1:30, he would have read its contents. By 2 p.m., he would have to make a choice: read my speech as written, or find the courage to deliver the truth to a crowd that included his mother's killers. I had no way of knowing what he would choose, no way of communicating with him, no way of protecting him if he decided to expose everything. The prison was unusually quiet that afternoon. Most of the other inmates were in the yard or watching TV in the common room, but I couldn't move from my cell. I sat on my narrow bunk staring at the wall, trying to imagine what was happening 40 miles away. At 1:15, my cellmate returned from his job in the kitchen. "You look like hell, man. What's eating you?" I couldn't explain. How do you tell someone that you've just potentially signed your son's death warrant? That you've given an 18-year-old boy the power to expose a conspiracy that has already claimed one life? "My son's graduating today," I said simply. "That's good news, right? You should be proud." Proud? Yes, I was proud of Jake. Proud of his intelligence, his integrity, his strength. But I was also terrified, because I knew that in about 15 minutes he would be holding a piece of paper that would force him to choose between safety and justice, between silence and truth. At 1:45, I started pacing. The speech I had written was designed to sound like a normal graduation address for the first few minutes. Proud father, bright future, work hard, follow your dreams. Standard stuff. But buried in the middle was a section that would make everyone in that auditorium sit up and take notice. I had written it in a way that would give Jake an out. He could skip that section if he wanted to. He could stick to the safe parts and no one would ever know what I had really intended. But I also knew my son. I knew his mother's sense of justice ran in his veins. I knew that once he read the truth, he wouldn't be able to stay silent. The clock read 1:58. In 2 minutes, Jake would step up to that podium. At exactly 2 p.m., I closed my eyes and tried to picture the scene. Jake, tall and confident in his graduation gown, walking to the podium. The crowd of families, teachers, and community leaders settling into their seats. And somewhere in that crowd, the people who had destroyed our family, expecting nothing more than a typical valedictorian speech from a young man they probably pitied. I imagined Jake unfolding the pages, his hands probably trembling slightly as he recognized my handwriting. I had written the opening in my normal style, warm and fatherly. My fellow graduates, families, and faculty. My name is Jake Morrison, and I'm honored to speak to you today as your valedictorian. I wish my father could be here with me, but circumstances have made that impossible. However, he has written some words that he wanted me to share with you. Standard opening. Nothing to raise any alarms. I pictured Jake's voice growing stronger as he continued with the safe parts of the speech. Talk about perseverance, about overcoming obstacles, about the bright future ahead. But then would come the moment of truth. The paragraph I had marked with a small star in the margin. The paragraph that would change everything. My father wants me to tell you about a night 15 years ago. The night my mother, Sarah Morrison, was murdered. I could almost hear the gasp that would ripple through the crowd, the sudden silence, the way people would lean forward, wondering if they had heard correctly. The official report said it was an accident, but my father has spent 15 years gathering evidence that proves otherwise. Evidence that my mother discovered a money laundering operation involving several prominent members of our community. Evidence that she was killed to keep her quiet. My heart pounded as I imagined Jake's voice continuing, stronger now, fueled by years of suppressed anger and grief. The documents my mother died protecting are hidden in a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 1247. The key is taped under the kitchen sink in our old house on Maple Street. The new owners never found it because they never renovated the kitchen. This was the moment when everything would explode. When the people responsible would realize that their 15-year-old secret was about to be exposed, when they would understand that the son of the woman they killed was standing in front of hundreds of witnesses, revealing their crimes. My father is in prison today not because he's a criminal, but because he got too close to the truth. They framed him to silence him, just like they killed my mother to silence her. But they made one mistake. They forgot that the truth has a way of surviving, even when the people who carry it don't. I opened my eyes, my cell coming back into focus. It was 2:15. If Jake had chosen to read the speech as written, the revelation would be happening right now. Police would be mobilizing. Arrests would be made. Justice, finally, after 15 years. Or Jake would be in mortal danger, having just exposed himself as a threat to people who had already proven they would kill to protect their secrets. I had given my son the truth. Now I could only pray he would survive it. The call came at 6:30 that evening. I was summoned to the warden's office, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. Either Jake was safe and the conspiracy was exposed, or something terrible had happened. The warden's face was unreadable as he handed me the phone. "It's your son." "Dad?" Jake's voice was shaky but alive, wonderfully, beautifully alive. "Jake, are you okay? What happened?" "I read it, Dad. I read every word." He paused, and I could hear voices in the background. "The FBI is here. They found the safety deposit box. They have Mom's evidence." Relief flooded through me so powerfully I had to sit down. "And you? Are you safe?" 3 arrests were made right there in the auditorium, including Judge Harrison and District Attorney Mills. Turns out Mom had recorded conversations, Dad. She had everything. I closed my eyes, feeling tears I had held back for 15 years finally breaking free. "I'm so proud of you, son. So proud of your courage. The FBI says your conviction will be overturned. You'll be home within weeks." His voice broke. "We're going to get justice for Mom, Dad." Finally. That night, I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling. But for the first time in years, I wasn't consumed by anger or grief. I was thinking about the future, about Jake starting college as a free man not burdened by his father's false conviction, about Sarah's killers finally facing justice, about the truth, which had indeed survived, just as I had told Jake it would. The next morning I woke to the sound of my cell door opening. "Morrison," the guard said, "pack your things. Your lawyer's here with some paperwork." As I walked down the corridor toward freedom, I thought about Jake's graduation speech, how it had started as a father's attempt to be present for his son's big day, and ended as the key that unlocked 15 years of buried truth. Sometimes the most important speeches are the ones that change everything. If this story touched you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. There are stories that change how we see the world, and this is just one of them.